All right, so hello. Again, I'm just going to be recording my responses to the discussion for deep culture and the reading that we are given in chapter 3. And hopefully, I'm speaking loud enough so that I'm able to hear. But the question that I'm going to answer for this time that we're asked is, what is deep culture? And how is the concept different from definitions of culture that are too broad or too simplistic? And I have to say, and I feel like in every time I do a discussion, what we're reading is just so interesting to me. And I really loved reading about the stories of the Indian woman and the tragedy that she had experienced, as well as the others, and with the very strong-minded Chinese woman and her pursuit to create this prodigy out of her daughter. I really enjoyed those readings and enjoyed reading about deep culture for this assignment. And so I feel like, I'm just gonna have a lot of fun talking about it. But again, the questions are really simple, straight to the point. And so I didn't realize that there was this idea of deep culture and then that even existed, because as I'm going to answer the question about it being too broad and simplistic, it's described to be something we all understand as a group of people, a community, race, right? Those are the understanding that I've had about culture, as far as before even reading this assignment. And so exactly what is it? And it's talked about in this as being an unconscious pattern, as it gives examples of the ants. And I'm reading it right here, being aware or becoming aware of intercultural experiences. And so it even talks right about the author or the speaker of this section, his experience with going abroad and living abroad in the community of Mexico. And I found it very interesting that it kind of was open to, his personal experiences, and that was what led him to talk about deep culture, because it was something that interested him. And so I found it very relatable, because I feel like, again, like human nature takes over and we're all kind of in the same space as what he's talking about, because I feel like, even if we don't want to admit it, we all do think the way in the reading, right, Bob? We all think like Bob. So it's very interesting to read. And just making sure I'm going back to answer the question, what is deep culture? Again, the patterns compared to the attributes or characteristics of a certain group. And what else? How is it different? You can kind of narrow it, because it's kind of only one or two questions altogether, but how is it different, or how does it differ from being too broad? And I kind of like the fact that the writer mentioned that deep culture is kind of a broad topic, and many scholars, right, and it lists the many different fields and kind of experts who kind of dive into specifics of deep culture, right? Language, interactions, behavior, religious, the religious side of culture. And so, like he said, like there's so many different avenues or ways that you can take to research about deep culture, and the fact that there are so many branches that you can see stem out of culture, that it's something that isn't simple as if describing it to just culture and to just our understanding of what we know culture to be. Makes reference to a lot of terms such as globalization and I don't know if I saw ethnocentric, or I saw something with ethnic. I'm trying to kind of read it as I'm referencing to question. Talks a lot about community, and what we hold our standards to. I think that's kind of something that differs, but I feel like culture altogether is general, but deep culture is kind of general too, but has much more specific topics that you can talk about in deep culture. But I think what kind of helps differentiate between the two is the idea of, again, our interactions, our behavior, our choices. It says right here, like the way we judge people, the way we kind of observe others to the standard of our thinking or our fixed mindset back home or where we're from. Hopefully I'm making sense about that. And so, yeah, I feel like that's kind of what deep culture is. Again, there's many new and different routes that we could take to define deep culture, but the ones that I've talked about are, hopefully those are kind of the ones that are mentioned in the reading that kind of help to give the definition of it and the concepts of it that make it different from culture as a general topic, and for it to be kind of too broader, it says too simplistic. And so I like how it's described to be of our own understanding. So like culture within ourselves, but then cultures within a larger group. Something that evolves with time. Again, with interactions, how it mentions, it makes reference to, right, a teenager to an elderly person. And so I really like the visuals that it gives in here because it kind of breaks down the big meaning of what the author is trying to say to how we would understand it today, and between the patterns that we see happening from back in time until now. And I really like the reference that he makes at the end with, and it kind of feels like it's kind of more his opinion on things at the end, where it talks about, right, like us having to go back in time and just come together as one versus creating our own identity, creating our own culture, creating something that different, that splits us and separates us and creates differences between groups. So yeah, I like how they're asking us to be aware of culture in our lives, culture and deep culture, and being open to diversity. And again, I feel like deep culture, again, can take many different routes, and culture as a whole is just groups, people. Deep culture is this, it's this, it's this. And it's not just one, but again, many. So yeah, I feel like I've answered to the best of my ability the questions that stem from the reading of tonight's assignment. And so I hope that kind of covers everything. I'm not too sure how the write-up's been going. I've done my other write-ups, and then in the previous one from yesterday or Monday's discussion, hopefully that kind of went through. Because the last time with my group, I did the write-up. And so in this one, maybe I think I'll just, since I'm already kind of recording it, I feel like my response to the other question was kind of quick. Maybe I'll take time to answer the write-up part within the recording or within the Google Hangouts, where it talks about, make a statement how deep culture provides a new way of looking at culture, and then quoting what's being said in the text. So how deep culture provides a new way of looking at culture. I was really interested to find out that that their deep culture as the rules of the game, right? Making the comparison to soccer. And with that, each person contributes her own understanding or his own understanding of deep culture to a larger group. It's something that is culturally dynamic. I think I mentioned it too, my earlier response, with it evolving with the times. And I heard a lot of and read a lot about communication in this reading, and I think what I just closed with in the other response with the communication between an elderly person and a teenage person, you can kind of see the difference in that it helps to make us understand what they're trying to say about the communication part and how it's evolved. And the changes of patterns within a culture is very slow. So you can find, and it says the historical continuing, I can't even talk tonight, over periods of time. What else? I'm trying to look, make sure I'm kind of going over each of the sections as it was labeled. It talks about the analogies of the ants, and the same way that deep culture is created, and I feel like it is created, and it kind of again evolves over time within the generations. Because if I'm making my comparison to this and helping me understand it better, within Hawaiian culture, there's Hawaiian culture, there's local culture, because right in Hawaii we're very diverse, so there's not just one specific group that kind of overtakes the culture of Hawaii, because there's multiple cultures. We have Samoa, we have Tonga, we have all these different groups of people together, and I'm a mixed person too, so it's like I don't have one specific culture, even though I really identify as Hawaiian being my main. There's multicultural groups that, right, we have our own ways of communicating, we have our own patterns within our community, and not within just the group, but society here in Hawaii, if I'm trying to make that as an example or comparison to what's being talked about in here. The behaviors, the way we go to the store, the way, right, we interact again, which again, and how it talks about it being very complex, and I feel like it is. If you think about it a little deeper in deep culture, it's a little bit more to grasp than what one would think would be simple as defining culture as, yeah, it's just Hawaiians, it's just Samoans, it's just Tongans, it's just this group of people. It's more than that. What's another new way of looking at it from the reading? I really talked about how it's not just in the brain, but in the air. It's the linguistic knowledge, the worldview that goes with it. I guess it's a combination of the general associations of the word. How it talks about wedding, right? And hopefully, again, I'm making sense, because I'm just kind of making specific examples as I'm reviewing what was given. Scientifically. There's that term network of meanings. I'm trying to pick out some things. Social practices, patterns of interaction, again. Culture communities, I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at with my example of home here. Yeah. There's no command and control structure in the ant colony. That one. That was their pattern. Again, communication. So I feel like I kind of talked about this, and once I kind of said something else followed. So I feel like I've been capturing the different parts of the reading in relation to what the question is asking. So I feel like that is a new way of looking at deep culture, because I've learned so much just from this one reading. And so, yeah, I feel like I've answered the question. I'm not too sure if that's okay to have it, because with the write-up, I don't know how that's gonna work. I mean, I know we should be doing it on our own, but I'm not too sure. I hopefully I've just answered the questions, and my write-up response is recorded. And so hopefully that kind of satisfies the assignment. Thank you, and thank you for the Timothy. Thank you for the readings that were given, because I feel like I might want to use this as my topic for the research paper and the social paper that's coming up, because it's something that really interests me. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this discussion and with this assignment, and can't wait to look forward to the next one.